Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another segment of Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Adonai, and this is part 2, where we left off from the other episode. And on my left, the lovely Louise Bundy, and we're just going to pick up where we left off.
Sounds good to me.
There's the 2 choruses start off there. Instead of playing that all the way
Right.
through. We're in our Han Hotel, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam set, so this is nice.
Yeah, it is. It's rich.
So our topic was minorities in film.
Yes,
We were talking about that, and we were talking about the racial relations in the United States compared to most countries.
Yeah, it's just so sad that we know we have so much of everything. We're so intelligent. We're so well educated. We have the finest universities. We have, great food. It's just sad that we can't recognize that everyone is the same.
I know.
And it also kind of spills over into the LGBT group. There's so many people that will not accept gays and lesbians as just regular people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's something wrong with them. There's something. The implication is there's something wrong with somebody who's not like you. And if you're not, the white race has done that throughout history. If you're not blonde-haired and blue-eyed, or have pale skin, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You're less than a person, which makes the person on the receiving end of that feel so bad. I remember even for myself, I never ever thought of myself as attractive because I didn't look like Marilyn Monroe, or I didn't look like Rhonda Fleming or Rita Hayworth. I was just something ugly because I didn't look like that.
Well, I know one way you can get rid of racism and prejudice. This is going to sound kind of crude, so I'll be sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Put Halle Berry in her birthday suit in front of any KKK member, and they're going to go brain dead.
Well, that's probably true.
Maybe I shouldn't say it that way.
But you know what? White men have always been attracted to women of color because it was different. It was exotic. It was something exciting. Unfortunately, a lot of slave owners molested their female slaves because of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very sad. And in Asia, when GIs would go overseas, same thing would happen.
Yeah.
So they would probably I'm sure they would be attracted to her, but not for the right reasons.
Yeah.
She is a beautiful woman, intelligent, well educated, but they don't see her that way. It's just somebody different who can make them feel good.
Yeah.
And that's too bad. That's too bad.
Yeah, when you said the right reason, if it's the right reason, that's one thing.
Yeah. If they're looking at her as potential wife material, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But for just a one-night stand, that's another thing.
Right, I agree.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's how they looked upon us all these years. In fact, I was propositioned a week after I got here by a married man who wanted a little something on the side.
Yikes, and he chose you.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, goodness.
He said, well, you look like you're, pretty good. And I'm like, yeah, but you see this ring on my finger? Didn't matter to him.
He said that?
Yeah.
Wow. I have never had anything like that ever happen to me. Wow.
Didn't matter to him.
I bet that must have been a little intimidating for you.
It wasn't. I just looked at him, because the guy that I was here to be with, that I had the ring on with, was standing not too far away. And he says, well, I'm sure, you just have to tell your husband. I said, well, you can ask him. He's standing right there. And he wasn't my husband. We were involved at the time, and I had his ring. But, this guy was just so sure that I'd be willing to jump into bed with him because he asked. So I was insulted, obviously, but...
That reminds me of an incident when I was playing before I moved to Missoula. I was married at the time, and I was playing piano at the hotel, and it was for this art show. They had like the main lobby where I was playing, and they had art stuff, and then they had other rooms behind it, artworks. And this guy walked in, and my wife at the time was sitting in a couch similar to you, not too far from the piano. And he just started hitting on her and trying to get her to go with him in the back while I was playing the piano and stuff. And so the way I handled it, because I knew he wasn't going to take no for an answer, she just insisted and said, no, I'm here with my husband at the time. And he just kept on. So finally, after I finished the song, I walked up to him. I said, I reached out my hand like this. I said, and I told him my name. I said, I'm such and such husband. And then he finally got the message.
Yeah.
He backed off.
Yeah.
And then what she did was to make sure she sat next to me the rest of the whole performance on the piano bench.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, it's just amazing.
That actually happened. So.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It sounds like they have this feeling that there's this feeling of entitlement. You know, that they're entitled to whatever.
The sanctity of marriage.
I know. Yeah, that they're just entitled to whatever they want, and that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
You know. You know, I mean, if you have that, sometimes if you have money and power, they think that that's all you need.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's not all you need. You have to have some character, you know, moral character.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be respectable.
That's right.
You know, so, and that's the thing too. Like, over the centuries, there was never any respect for people of color. You know, whether it's Hispanics or blacks or Asians or Native Americans, whatever. It's just no respect at all. You know, it means we're very proud people. A lot of the tribes in Africa were amazingly proud, and they built some fantastic cities. Like Timbuktu was a major city in the ancient world. And so you look at what the Incas did and the Aztecs did. I mean, their cities were unbelievable. And in Egypt and in India, you know, China. Amazing places, but for some reason, when whites came in, they just felt like they knew better. You know, they just looked down. Look what England did with the Raj in India, for example. You know, just so sad. You know, and if it had been mutual, I think civilization would have advanced much faster and much farther if it had been mutual, because each of them could have learned from the other. You know, I mean, the Egyptians did amazing things in the desert, and that could have spilled over into helping whites fare in the American desert, for example. You know, if they could have taken some lessons from what was done, even with the Incas in building their amazing cities, and the Aztecs. You know, how were they able to survive in such inhospitable territory? You know, but whites had all the answers, and you know, and the Native Americans also were able to survive in conditions that whites struggled with. So it's too bad that they couldn't have seen some of these situations as learning situations instead of going in and saying, no, we have all the answers and we know better. You know.
Oh yeah.
And there you go.
Do you recognize this song? That is the Nocturne in F sharp.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Beautiful song.
Yeah, absolutely. I love classical music. Always have. I grew up with it, so.
I like this part too.
Yeah.
Speaking of a comical part of that, they had an episode of the Muppet Show with Liberace playing that.
Oh my.
It was funny because the concert was called Dedicated to the Birds. You know, they have a lot of bird characters on the Muppet Show, so while Liberace was playing the Nocturne that I just did, they had these big life-size birds, you know, like big bird size, and they were doing a little dancing around not too far from the piano.
That's great.
It was just the cutest little thing.
I bet.
Yeah, dedicated to the birds. So he does the Nocturne in F sharp, and then after the birds do their concert, the birds walk off stage, and then Sam comes along. Oh, Mr. Liberace, Mr. Liberace, and he goes, "Hi, Sam." You know, Sam's the one with the flat square head with the big eyes.
Right.
How you been, Sam? Well, Mr. Liberace, thank you. Everything has been cultural, sir. And that worries me. because I know your work too, sir, and I know this show. And now that you have played Chopin, it follows that next you will be wearing a rhinestone tuxedo and playing shameless Boogie Woogie.
Oh no.
And Liberace says, I won't be doing that soon, I promise you. I'm going to do it right now. All of a sudden his costume changed to the rhinestone and he starts doing his Boogie Woogie.
Oh no.
And Sam just goes like this and he walks off.
That's great.
Well, only Jim Henson could think of some crazy thing like that.
Of course. Yeah.
But that was just such a cute skit. It's something like 10 or 15 minutes long from the time we do the Nocturne piece and then the Boogie Woogie. And then at the end, Liberace's dancing with the birds. And Sam, the dog, I think, takes over and starts playing the piano.
That's great.
Just the cutest little skit.
It was a wonderful show.
I know, it was one of my favorite shows. I enjoyed. It was fun watching all the famous people and how they interact with the puppets and the topic that they covered seemed to fit whoever the movie star was. It was on there. So yeah.
Yeah, I like the fact also that the Muppets were all different colors. You know,
that's right. That's
red
right.
and blue and brown and green and yellow and whatever. So it doesn't. It's nice. It's nice.
Well, anyway, getting back to what we were talking about, you know, the Muppets and the colors and the characters. Maybe America will be like that one day.
It would be nice.
You know, that would be really nice.
Yeah.
Or like Star Trek, you know, for example.
Yeah, exactly. All different races and sizes.
That reminds me of a song when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
All the different races of the world. Red and yellow, black and white.
Right. They are precious and insight.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So
that's the way it ought to be.
America needs to get back to that.
Exactly.
Like I mentioned when I mentioned in the New Testament about how can you say you love God who you haven't seen and hate your brother who you have seen. So yeah, I should show you that Charlton Heston cartoon. It was pretty cool how they depicted God.
Yeah.
Just a big giant eyeball in the sky. And it made me think of those passages there, even though their topic was about creation, you know, the creation and so on. You never saw any of those cartoons, did you?
No.
Well, this is an older Heston. This was before we lost him. And it was like a time travel show because first he was, I guess, a studio or an office or something. And there was a cartoon 8x10 of the cartoon character that would actually go back in time to whatever Bible time that Heston was talking about. And so Heston would look at the camera and say, his name was Simon. We're going to have Simon. We're going to introduce him in a moment. He's going to go back in time to some biblical point of history. And they always went back, like, say, David and Goliath or something, something like that. You know?
Noah's Ark or, you know.
Yeah, just some cool thing there. And they were just telling the story. They weren't trying to convert anybody or anything. They were just telling the story.
Sure.
But when they did the creation story with God as this big eyeball, it made me think of that first John. You know what God looks like for real.
Yeah, exactly. You know, my concept of God is like energy, just pure.
Well,
energy.
this was just interesting how they portrayed God, you know. But see, the point I'm making is that you can't say you love someone you haven't seen. When you got 6 billion people that would just, you know, you're kind and you're hating them.
Right.
You're so busy hating them.
Exactly.
So
I understand from my point of view is hate is actually anger turned inward.
You don't think that's like taught behavior?
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is. Yeah, because
I agree.
you put a African American infant next to a white infant and they grow up together, they don't know.
Of course.
You know.
And like I used the example of the Labrador, the collie, you know.
Yeah, they have no clue. They just know that, you know, somebody's got a dog biscuit and it doesn't matter, you know, what hand it comes from.
Now, getting back to Asians in film and other films that have passed, Joel mentioned 2 films, Tales of Manhattan, 1942, and Cabin in the Sky, I think was part 2 of that or something like that, 1943.
I saw Cabin in the Sky.
Yeah, it had people like Eddie Rochester, Ethel Waters, Lena Horne, and I think that was stereotypical of the way they were portraying African American people of that time.
Well, like in Gone with the Wind, all the slaves were singing and everybody was happy and, you know, wonderful. But that's not the way it was, unfortunately. The miniseries Roots was closer to the truth than anything. You know, it was being a slave in the South in the 19th century was horrific. You know, and I'm sure that there were some more benevolent slave masters like Thomas Jefferson, but a slave was still a slave.
Yeah,
you couldn't own property, you couldn't legally marry. You know, you had no rights. You were just somebody's property.
Well, I was getting it Gone with the Wind, like I shared with you in the past. I didn't think I was going to like that movie when I first saw it, because it was tough enough when I saw Roots, and I thought, oh man, I don't want to look at another movie where they're dogging on African American people. That was my first thought, and I have nothing against Clark Gable.
Oh no.
But finally, I made the decision to watch it. And it was not what I expected. It was a sick, twisted love relationship just in that time period.
Exactly.
So when you see like Rhett Butler and, you know, the costume, it didn't bother me.
Right.
Because it wasn't focusing on the racial aspect
not
of
at all. Not at all.
Slave. It was
about
Clark
them.
Gable was sick.
Yeah, it was about
that relationship with Scarlett O'Hara was pretty bad.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah, they were both pretty dysfunctional.
Yeah. So that's what it was in that time period.
Exactly.
And I like the Carol Burnett show. Did you see their version of
Yes, that was hysterical.
Went with the wind.
Oh, I know. When she came out with that curtain rod in her hand, I thought I was gonna split my sides.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my Lord! And the characters too. Tim Conway and Harvey Korman were trying so hard not to laugh.
Yeah, but you could tell they were just dying on the inside.
The audience must have laughed for like a full minute. I mean, it was just...
Carol Burnett walked out with that curtain rod.
I know.
Oh, just something that slipped on or something. Whatever the word she said for that.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
That was genius right there. Oh my goodness. But I just really hope that we can finally get to a point in this country, at least, where everybody's equal, and it's not just people of color; it's also women, you know, and LGBT community as well. You know, stop judging people. Just relax and accept.
Take a chill pill. Drink some lemonade. You know.
I mean, you meet somebody, they're fine until they show you that they're not. Yeah. You know, you come up and you talk to somebody.
I think that was Dr. King's message.
Yeah, exactly. Just, you know, have a conversation, get to know the person, and don't be put off by the fact that they may have purple hair or 5 earrings in one ear, or there's a guy in a dress. You know, just whatever.
I think that maybe it's just this culture. When you're a kid, you're raised to dress a certain way and act a certain way and be a certain way, and if you don't fit that expectation, something's wrong with you. It took me a while to snap out of that thinking too. I mean, when I was like really young.
Well, sure, we all were subjected to that. You know, we were all a product of that. You know, and it just has to change. And also, I hate to say, this is a Judeo-Christian society, and a lot of that comes from the churches. You know,
I think most of it comes more from family upbringing and probably television, I would say.
Well, even
television tends to portray stuff like that too.
It does, but even before television was even invented, that kind of thinking was rampant, you know, in Europe as well as in the United States.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's just kind of a strange way to be exposed when you're really young, I think, you know.
There was a thing about, it was a dichotomy between rich and poor, black and white, you know. Because, I mean, even the Irish were discriminated against when they came over here. You know, I saw a Bonanza episode one time where Joe and a black man and another Irish guy were all trying to catch a train to go somewhere. Well, Joe got on the train and went, you know, he was ready to go into the coach, but they sent the black man out to sit on the flat car on the outside, so Joe went out there to be with him. And then the Irish guy was inside, and all of a sudden, he comes out on the flat car, and he and the black guy never got along. So Joe sits there and he says, well, what are you out here? The guy looks at me and says, I'm Irish. So they kicked him out because he was Irish. You know? So, I mean,
that's crazy.
It is crazy. You know? But they discriminated against the Irish and the Italians and the Jews, and, you know, they weren't color. They were white.
Did you hear what happened in the Jewish cemeteries recently? That was on the world news.
Yeah.
Over 100 gravestones were knocked over, not just in one place, but certain places.
Right. That's. But I can't wrap my mind around that.
Yeah, you got to be pretty lame to be able to mess with somebody that's passed on.
I know. Exactly.
You know, desecrate their gravesite.
Right.
My goodness.
Right. Or to like bomb somebody's church. I mean, this is a place of worship.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the same kind of church you would go to. It's just the fact that respect the other person's beliefs, no matter what. I mean, I'm not religious at all.
Well, I know, but we're just talking about, I mean, you don't have to be, you could be a heart of stone, but to see someone burn a church or
I don't get that.
Gravesite,
you know, I mean, that part of this country's freedom is the freedom of religion, you know? Yeah. Let it be. So,
you know, what scares me about the people that messed with the Jewish cemetery, whatever a person's belief, there is a passage, you may have heard this in Genesis, you know, when God was making the agreement with Abraham, I'll bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you. That's just something to think about, these people that, you know.
That desecrate,
Yeah, you can probably bring some bad stuff on you in a sense.
Well, even if you just believe in karma, that could be, you know, what goes around comes around kind of thing.
Well, I'm thinking more, you know, I need to get specific because I know God is a God of love, but the Jewish people are God's chosen people. So when you mess with those people, you're actually messing with the Lord, in my opinion.
Well, I think you do that when you mess with anybody.
Yeah, I know, but I think the Jewish people in particular. And think of all the nations in history that have tried to attack the Jewish nation. You don't even hear about them anymore. You know, like the, what was it, the town that Goliath was from? Gath?
Oh, I don't remember.
And all those other nations of the past that seem to be non-existent now, that were trying to attack the Jewish nation and in history. You don't even have to be no Bible scholar. That's just common sense in history, just plain history.
Exactly. And it's just the idea of...
And it just makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. You know, bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you. It just makes you wonder.
Exactly. And
leave them people alone. Leave them people alone.
Okay. Yeah, whatever happened to live and let live?
Yeah, really.
You know? I mean, geez, if they're not directly harming you, just leave them alone. Let them do what they want to do.
Yeah.
You know, if they're not harming anybody, what's the problem?
Yeah.
You know, just because they believe a certain way doesn't mean you have to. If they're not trying to impose it on you, let them worship and have their faith, and that's just fine. You know?
Yeah.
Gee whiz. And people here seem to be able to blame an entire group of people for the actions of one.
Yeah, isn't that something?
One person does something, and all of a sudden everybody that's like that is the same way. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah.
You know? Like this, to get a little bit political, this Muslim ban.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's like, seriously, you know?
Well, let the lawmakers figure it out. It's like
God.
that scene in The Incredibles. Did you see the movie The Incredibles?
No.
Well, basically, The Incredibles, when they were young, they were superheroes. You know, they were saving the world. And one guy tried to off himself and get saved. And he didn't want to get saved, so he sued The Incredibles. So the government told him they can't be superheroes anymore. But at the end of the movie, when they saved the day, some of the authorities said, just going out there and save the world. You guys did us a favor from getting wiped out. We'll let the politicians deal with that.
Yeah, really.
So I was using that as an analogy, what you were talking about just now about the politicians and the ban and so let them figure it out.
Well, I guess they've changed it a little bit. They took Iraq off the list.
Yeah.
Because poor Iraqi soldiers are trying to fight ISIS over there, and they were coming here to train on F-16s. Here in the United States, and because of the ban, those soldiers couldn't come back into the country to train to defend their own country. It's like, hello, you know, boggles the mind. And there's just so much strife. Oh my goodness. It's just sad. It's just sad, you know? There should be, like I say, one race, the human race. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, we get like Star Trek. That'll happen.
Yeah, that will. You know, everybody should be accepted until they prove that they shouldn't be.
That was the Symphony in A minor by Beethoven while you were, I don't know if you recognized it or not. I'll do it again.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, I better watch what I'm doing. This isn't really a piano song, you know.
Oh, it's a symphonic.
No, it's an orchestral song.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful song.
It is.
After that point, it gets all kind of orchestral.
Sure.
There's no way to repeat
and
that.
I'm sure I have it because I have
I've got it at home.
an album of the complete works of Beethoven.
Oh, you do?
On record, yeah.
Oh, wow. I'd be interested in hearing that sometime.
Yeah.
But I have like this DVD of just some of Beethoven's hits, they call it. That was one of the songs that was on there.
Yeah. No, I have his complete works.
Symphony in A.
Yeah, on record, on albums.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's wonderful to listen to him.
And of course, the Fair Elise, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was his. Was she his wife?
My understanding of that was it was one of his pupils.
Oh, okay.
Beethoven had a pupil that he was in love with.
Oh, okay.
And she may have liked him too, but realistically speaking, that would not have worked.
Right.
Circumstantially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where that song came into being.
Yeah, I often wondered who she
Fair
was.
Elise. Elise. I think her name was Elizabeth or Elise or something.
Probably Elise.
Yeah.
It just means for Elise. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful song.
It is.
Beautiful song. I'm going to stop on that note there.
Sure.
But,
yeah.
Yeah, I think he wrote that for a student that he really adored.
So many beautiful things came out of Germany. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so sad that Hitler had to spoil that whole image, you know.
Well, he's not going to be messing with no one anymore.
This is very true.
That's what David Letterman said about him. He won't be no threat messing with anybody anymore.
No kidding, no kidding.
So.
But yeah, you've got the wonderful composers.
Yeah.
You know, and beautiful architecture and foods and beer and
culture. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of culture.
Yeah.
A lot of culture. There's a lot of culture in every single society in the world.
I know it.
Actually. You know.
Including African Americans.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yeah. We get a lot of our foods from there. A lot of customs. A lot of jazz came from African Americans. You know, jazz is the only true American music. You know. And it's wonderful. It started with the chants in the fields from the slaves, and went from there into blues and gospel, and now we have the amazing progressive jazz we have now. You know, in the jazz age, wow, one of the most prosperous eras in American history. Yeah, the 20s until 1929 and the crash were some of the most amazing ages. You know, and you had the big band era. Did you ever watch Ken Burns' series on jazz?
Yes, I did. I liked the one with, well, my favorite was the one when they were tackling jazz, Louis Armstrong and Miles Davis.
Yeah.
And, that was way cool.
No kidding. Louis Armstrong was very, very instrumental. He changed the whole feeling of jazz from Dixieland, which was all the instruments playing together, and he's the first one that started the solo.
I think he was probably one of the greatest trumpet players that ever lived.
Absolutely. Yeah, such a distinctive style.
Yeah, especially, I've seen some footage of him in 1933 when he was young.
Yeah.
You know, even 60 Minutes said that as a young man, people went to see Louis Armstrong to watch him hit these outrageous high notes that he was known for doing in that part of his life.
That's true.
And
it was incredible.
Yikes, he would just hit some serious high notes on that horn. It sound nice while playing.
Exactly.
And he don't like sneak up on the note. He like hit the note, stay up there for a little bit, come down.
Yeah, I know.
Just amazing.
He was.
All melodic.
Yeah.
But he opened a door for
he really did.
A lot of people.
Yeah, he really did.
And I think it surprised even his teacher, King Oliver. Because it got to the point where King Oliver's like, man, I can't teach this guy nothing no more. This guy's too good.
Yeah, really.
And I had heard that they let Louis play with King Oliver, a very young, teenager or something. Yeah, that's how skilled he was.
Oh, yeah.
He was very good. He picked up that trumpet real fast.
Yeah.
It was like he was meant to play that horn.
No kidding. Yeah.
From reform school, too, I understand.
Yeah.
To keep him out of trouble.
It saved him.
Here, take this trumpet, kid. Go take some trumpet lessons.
No kidding.
They probably would be a snide when they first did that to give him this trumpet,
give him
this trumpet. And they had like a little band in the reform school. Because Louis had been fighting and in trouble as a kid.
Yeah.
You start getting good on that horn.
That was the end of that.
Yeah, that took care of that problem.
Sure, that was great.
So even if the intention was not good originally, it worked out well.
Amazing, yeah.
To produce the greatest trumpet player ever.
No kidding. But yeah, he was a pioneer.
Yeah. You know? And I saw those documentaries, those Ken Burns documentaries, and they were talking about him.
No kidding.
And of course, jazz started to evolve.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't matter because the door had already been opened.
Sure. Oh yeah.
So even though Louis wasn't necessarily playing bebop, it didn't make any difference because that just evolved from what Louis was doing all along.
And do you know that they didn't want people that owned venues for playing didn't want mixed bands.
Yeah.
They wanted either a white band or a black band. It couldn't be mixed.
I think Benny Goodman was responsible for putting an end to that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. 1937?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they've got the footage of that now, that
they probably
actual Carnegie Hall concert that I saw on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, it was.
What a very young Harry James.
Yeah, no kidding.
And people don't know this. That movie that they did with Steve Allen, I think, the comedian, playing the clarinet player, the Benny Goodman story. Well, there was an African-American trumpeter named Buck Clayton.
I've heard of Buck Clayton.
Yeah, I knew him personally.
Oh.
He's the one that wrote my letter of recommendation when I went to school.
Ah, nice.
Buck Clayton, yeah, seriously. I don't tell that story often because there's no reason to tell it.
Right, that's great.
But he lived 2 blocks from my auntie in New York when I was out there. And I used to go to his house and we used to talk trumpet. Because his son that he lost in real life was a professional trumpeter too, just like his father.
Right.
And I was somewhat able to play a trumpet at that time. So, yeah, he invited me to a song. I used to hang out with Buck Clayton and he talked trumpet. He used to tell me about the big band era. It was just cool.
Yeah.
Because he played with Harry James.
I'll be darned.
Like, wow. That must have been something. I know I wasn't alive then, but that just must have been something.
I bet.
So Buck Clayton is in that film with Harry James, sitting next to Harry James. Benny Goodman story. So next time you see that, you see that, and he plays a solo in there somewhere. So
nice. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, musicians never cared about color, race, no.
All they wanted to
just
do
play.
Get together and play. That's it. That's all they cared about was play.
Yeah, and a lot of the dance halls throughout the country were mixed. I know I just saw a documentary about one that was, I want to say Georgia, somewhere. Tennessee, somewhere in the mid sort of southern area. Maybe it was Missouri, Kansas, I don't know. But where everybody would come. It was started at somebody's house in their spare room, and it expanded into a whole big thing. And I forgot the name of the place. It was on PBS a week or so ago. But it was great. You know, they would get together and they would serve some food and some drinks, and, you know, and everybody came. There was whites, blacks, Hispanics, whatever. You know, and they'd all get up and dance and have a good time. Nobody cared. And that's the way it should be, you know? Because you can always, no matter who you are, you can always learn something from somebody else. Whether it's a musician or a dancer or a professor or a mechanic or a shoe shine boy, who knows? You know, you can always learn something if you just talk to people, you know? And if we could all just do that, it would be wonderful. If you could walk into a room and people would just see you as a person, you know, doesn't matter what your skin color is, what you have on, what your shoes look like, you know, they don't care.
Oh, yeah.
You know? That would be great. That would be great. So,
yeah. Well, maybe one day.
Yeah. But you know, films have come a long way since the days.
Yeah, since Tales of Manhattan.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, you look at actors like, you know, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman.
Oh yeah.
You know, actresses. You know, Halle Berry, and just so many wonderful people. And you know, James Shigeta was one of my favorite actors when I was younger because I thought he was so handsome.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
Just a whole gamut of people that have come so far,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I didn't care whether they were Asian or black or white or whatever,
Right.
You know. I mean, if there was a handsome guy, it was a handsome guy. It didn't matter. You know?
Cesar Romero.
Yes.
That guy sure had the handsome category covered, didn't he?
Definitely.
As a young man, he wasn't too bad looking when he got older.
That's true.
Had that John Forsythe distinguished look when he got older.
Oh yeah.
I've seen some footage of Cesar Romero as a young man. I'm like, where did he get those looks from?
I know.
Have you seen him as a young man?
Yeah.
No wonder Hollywood was knocking on his door.
Exactly.
He was doing some lead movies like with people like
sure.
Betty Grable.
Sure. Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he was one of the first Hispanic men that had a leading role like that.
Yeah.
You know?
He had those looks to go with that too.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there were a lot of handsome men in early pictures.
Yeah.
Especially the people of color. So, you know, it's just great that they had all this groundbreaking stuff. I think it was about time back then.
No kidding. No kidding.
Instead of the stereotypical black person is servant role.
Right. Shoeshine boy.
Some white guy goes halfway around the world. And we talked about Raymond Burr to solve something.
Oh, I know.
That's crazy. And I like Raymond Burr. I think he's a fine actor.
I do too. I love Perry Mason. I watch it every night.
But that was so corny to me, that Godzilla movie, having Raymond Burr go all the way to Tokyo to solve something that the authorities couldn't solve.
Exactly.
That was pretty corny.
I know. But at least now the Japanese are so innovative, you know, that we recognize that they are probably ahead of us in education, you know.
Yeah.
And
speaking
Indians
of education,
as well.
you know, like I said, I lived in China, Taiwan actually. I would have loved to have done all 12 grades there.
Yeah.
I think their education system, even at that time, early 60s, was higher.
Yeah, superior. I think the United States is really lagging behind.
You know, we went to a school called the Dominican School, and what was interesting about this school, if I had to describe it, think of Oral Roberts University as far as the expanse. They had the kindergarten children to the 12th graders all on the same campus, but it was sectioned in such a way that you didn't see like sophomores, little kids and stuff. It was just a huge campus. Had a big mountain in the back, and we used to run cross country, and it was like not a paved road, but a dirt road that was kind of smoothed out. And they had all these little kids running this cross country, including myself. I was pretty good at it.
That's great.
I think it was like third grade, something like that.
Yeah.
And it took like a whole hour to run that thing. It was like this huge mountain hill area. Yeah, you get a workout after about 15 minutes running that thing.
Yeah.
They did it like once a week. They'd run that.
Nice. Nice.
And then they made the kids stand in front of the school, and it was listening to this like Godzilla sounding music. If I had to describe it.
Oh dear.
Catholic school.
Yeah.
And the nuns had habits and things.
Right.
But it was just such discipline.
Yeah.
Nobody was wearing like T-shirts with crossbones and things like
exactly.
that. You know, the guys wore white shirts, short sleeve white shirts with blue pants, and the girls had like a white little shirt with a little blue blouse. And it had a patch on there that said DS for Dominican School. You know.
Yeah.
Everybody on that campus was like that. So.
Yeah, discipline is very, very important. You know?
I liked it there. It was fun.
Yeah.
I had a lot of Asian friends.
Oh, sure.
American friends at that time.
Yeah.
And I never felt like I was an African American, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. I never felt different in elementary school, too, because I grew up in Boston.
Yeah. And nobody ever called us the N-word or nothing like that.
No, I went to an all-girls school, but I had a friend who was Irish. Malouf was her last name. I had a friend who was mixed race, black and white. And my best friend was from Lebanon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, her name was Helen Botesh. And that's the first time I ate pita bread was when I went to her house. And she said, "This is Syrian bread." And I said, "Okay." And it was wonderful, you know. So I was exposed to all these different cultures.
Yeah, me too. I had a
I
dose
didn't
of that
know
too.
that I was any different than anybody else. You
There was this kid named Jesus, Hispanic kid when I was growing up, and his mother couldn't speak English, but she knew that I was friends with her son. So every time when Jesus would invite me over, she'd have these big, what do you call, tortilla shells, real thick, not the kind you get at Albertsons, the real deal.
Yeah.
You want some of these? Well, she would do translation. And she'd always feed me, and it was so good.
Yeah.
Just a sweet lady.
Oh, homemade tortillas are wonderful.
Yeah. You know, a lot of that at that boy's house at that time.
I bet.
I hung out there a lot. I wonder why.
No kidding. Good food.
Yeah, they had some really good food.
Yeah.
Really, really good food.
No kidding. Oh, the Hispanic cultures are so rich, not just from Spain, but from Mexico and Central America, South America.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, their cultures are so wonderful.
You ever watch that show with Laura McKenzie? She travels all around the world.
No, I haven't.
Every week she's in a different country, some exotic country.
Right. No, I've seen others.
Exposing the culture.
Right.
Yeah, and she was in Vietnam one time, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then, like, next week she'll be, like, say, Sweden or someplace like that. They cover music, they cover foods.
Yeah. I've seen shows with Rick Steves and Rudy Max.
It's similar to those.
Rudy Max.
Laura McKenzie,
yeah. I love those travel shows.
Must be nice to be able to make a living going all around the world, exposing people to cultures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you know, when you go to those cultures, you don't see the N-word or
not.
that mentality.
No, that mentality is totally different.
It's just in the U.S.
They're just accepting.
You know, I've had moments where I wish I was rich enough to leave the United States.
Yeah.
Not because I have anything against the States, but what I'm ashamed of sometimes is the racial aspect of this country.
Yes, definitely.
That makes me almost ashamed to be an American.
It is. It's a big blot.
And to live here, because of that.
Yes, and it seems like for a while it was getting better, and now, I don't know, with this political climate, it seems like it's dividing us even more.
But that's been going on way...
Of course, but it seems to have been brought to the surface more now than it has been in the past, you know. It's just, like you said, it's a big stain on this wonderful country. You know, this country is wonderful in so many ways.
Yeah, I know, it's a wonderful country. It's just, if we could be like the other nations around the world that don't have all these racial issues, I think it would be fun.
Well, you know, like I was...
They may not like you if you're Catholic or Protestant, but I think that's different than a racial thing, you know? There's a difference.
It is.
I think.
It is. I mean, can be... I mean, to like somebody because of the way they were born doesn't make sense to me at all. You know? Yeah. I mean, it's like saying because you have one arm or one leg, then you're not as good. You know, it's like...
Hey, you shouldn't underestimate handicapped people.
Of course not.
There's a girl right here in Missoula. I don't know her name. She's kind of developmentally slow, and I met her. Real sweetie. You put that girl out there on the track, she turns into Steve Austin. They said that girl was a state champion runner,
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, that girl can run.
Sure.
I mean, you would even know it. I mean, she just metamorphosed, just changed like a Hulk. Just all of a sudden.
Yeah.
They put that girl out on that track and she's running like Steve Austin.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah.
The smoking folks too.
Know. And that's what I'm saying.
And I don't mean just a little bit. She they're eating her dust, you know.
Well, that's what I mean. You know, why would you discriminate against someone like that when they were born that way?
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah,
so if you're born a different color, so what?
Yeah, I agree.
But there's such a stigma that's attached to, especially African Americans or Africans, people of darker skin.
I know it.
And it's of biblical proportions. You know, they try to say that black people have the mark of Cain, and Cain killed Abel, so therefore we're all murderers or something.
It's so ridiculous.
Oh, it's like, what are you doing? You know?
Because nobody in this century was even alive when that incident happened with Cain and Abel for real. We weren't even alive. So how are they going to be some expert or something that happened thousands of years ago and say, hey, it's the way it is?
I know, especially if it was just a biblical story and not an actual event.
Yeah.
You know? I
No,
mean, what about
event,
that? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, gee whiz.
Oh, wow.
And they try to make it so that God says that darker people are cursed.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's just so ridiculous.
Really? You know?
Really? They want to get stupid and go there?
Exactly. And then, like you say, with the song you just played about Jesus loves the little children.
Oh, yeah.
You know, red and yellow, black and white, they're precious in His sight. If you believe in Jesus, then why would you discriminate against anybody?
Right.
You know, especially since he was purported to have washed the feet of other people and accepted prostitutes. And I mean, he was the most humble character in all history, you know, who accepted everyone.
Yeah, well, you know, like I said, only in America, this is the only place where anything goes. Like that New York song, that Sinatra song.
Yeah, no kidding.
Everything goes.
Yeah. But unfortunately, the bad goes with the good.
I know it.
You know?
Here.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we have such freedom. That's probably another reason why stuff like that happens.
Right. But you know what? Freedom isn't license. Yeah. You know, freedom means, yes, you're able to do certain things. Right. That doesn't mean you're able to do everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Like hate your brother and then wipe him out.
Right. Hatred should not even be a part of this country. Look at how lucky we are here.
I know it.
We have everything.
We
have an abundance of food. We have an abundance of everything.
That's enough to make you want to get on, you know, just say, thank you, dear Lord, and just treat your brother right, and, you know, that sort of thing.
Just see that people are people. It doesn't matter if they're not like you. In fact, it's probably better if they're not like you, because you can learn something from
if the
that.
whole world were like me, if everybody looked like me, I think it'd be kind of a dull world.
Very boring.
You know?
Yeah. Very boring. I don't want everybody to look like me or think like me. Or,
yeah.
You know,
I think one of me is enough, you know.
One of me too. You know?
The world's had me for almost 60 years.
Exactly.
I think that's one Asaph is enough.
Yeah, and one Asaph is a blessing. You know, it's great.
No, I know, I realize that, and I'm glad to be alive and everything, but at the same time, one of me is enough.
I know. And I wouldn't want everybody to look.
We have a million of me walking around here.
I know, and I wouldn't want everybody to look the same.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, there's growth and diversity.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's why I really love living in Los Angeles, California, because there's 86 different cultures in LA.
Well, that took time for that.
It did.
That city to grow.
But the thing is, it was such a welcoming environment.
Yeah.
That sure, come on in. And it wasn't always like that. I mean,
I realize that. I remember my early concerts in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
It wasn't like that.
It wasn't always like that.
It's changed now.
Yeah, and it's so open and welcoming. Mm-hmm. You know, they have a Chinatown and a Thai town and a Korea town, and there's where you can get Jewish delis, and you have Hispanic restaurants, and you have everything.
Oh yeah.
I mean, every kind of food you could possibly want, Ethiopian and Indian and whatever, it doesn't matter. And I think that's enriching a person.
Oh, yeah.
If a person lives in just one culture and thinks just one way, they can't grow as a person.
Right.
Because they're not exposed to anything else.
And on that note, we got 5 minutes left.
Oh,
See how fast this went?
Oh, that's great.
So I'm just glad we got to cover everything from Asians in film to early movies, stereotypes to racial issues, and
I am too.
And it was fun to talk for a change.
Definitely. And I really hope that maybe it prompts somebody out there to think about their feelings towards race. You know.
In a few minutes we have left, you got any final words you want to say?
Just that the buzzword for today is love. You know, love yourself and use that to learn how to love others. You know?
That's a good thought, yeah. Or like, that's 1 John. How can you say you love God who you have not seen and hate your brother who you have seen? Mm-hmm. That's just food for thought. That would be food for the thought on the cafe.
There you go.
Food for thought.
Right.
You know? Like I said, I'm not here to convert nobody. It's just food for thought.
Exactly.
You know? And that's a neat. That's a neat Bible verse in a sense. You know.
I like that.
As far as people.
Yeah.
And so on.
Yeah. Like I heard someone say, "How can you hate me if you don't know me?"
Yeah.
You know.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what Shrek said.
Yeah.
I was going to cover on that Shrek #1. He and the donkey were talking about that very thing.
Yeah.
And people think will look at me and they judge me, so I just let them think whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And Princess Fiona was eavesdropping on that conversation, so she started straightening because she was judging him at first too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I have to, catch myself every once in a while. Somebody comes in the store and they look kind of seedy. I'm like, are they going to steal something, or, are they going to? Who knows? And you just have to not do that. Just wait until you see the behavior and then form your opinion. Wait until the person actually does something to make you feel that way. So
here's a theme Shrek. Did you catch it?
I don't think I've seen the movie.
That's it.
Nice.
That's the theme of Shrek.
Nice.
Well, I'll have to show that to you because I've got it. It's pretty. I have a DVD at home.
Oh yeah.
It's a really cool movie if you think about the context.
I've seen excerpts and trailers from it, but I just haven't actually seen the whole movie.
Yeah, well, they have 4 Shrek films out already.
Yeah.
Shrek 1 basically was there was this king named Farquaad who was a bad king. He wasn't even really a king. He wasn't officially elected. He just took over a town, and he sent Shrek on a quest to rescue the princess because he didn't want to do it himself. That's how Shrek got involved in that.
Gotcha.
So the deal was, you go and rescue the princess, I'll give you your swamp back, because the king took over the swamp and forced all the animals out of the city and threw them into the swamp where Shrek lived. So that was the plot line. Of course, Shrek saves the day.
Oh, sure.
And then all of a sudden the king moves in and wants to marry the princess after Shrek did all the work.
Oh, no.
But she didn't want to really marry that king anyway, so Shrek ends up getting the girl. And then in Shrek 2, with Julie Andrews, anything Julie Andrews is in is great as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So, Shrek goes to meet the in-laws. And when I saw that, I could relate to that. I was like, oh, they're telling my story. And then they introduce a character called Puss in Boots.
Oh, yeah.
Number 2.
Right.
Antonio Banderas character. So in Shrek 3, Puss in Boots gains weight. He's not as feisty as he was, Shrek just has a bunch of kids. So then in number 4, Shrek wants to go back to when he was single. And Rumpelstiltskin says, okay, I'll make that possible for you if you sign this contract. But Rumpelstiltskin has some bad intentions.
Of course.
So when Shrek signs and gets plunged back into the past, nobody knows him. And Rumpelstiltskin was going to try to wipe him out because he was really a bad guy. So Shrek had to get back to where he was. He had to cancel that contract and get rid of Rumpelstiltskin, plus get Donkey back and Princess Fiona, his wife, back.
Oh, my goodness.
It was almost like the Back to the Future movies.
Oh, okay.
You know how Michael J. Fox had to go back in number 2 and fix all that?
Right.
Shrek had to pretty much do the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
But my favorite is number 1, of course. That's
It's usually
classic.
the best.
Yeah,
the first movie is usually the best in a series.
Well, I'll have to show that to you sometime. I think you'll like it. Any other final words before we sign off?
No, just thank everyone for watching. I hope no one was offended by any of the subject matter. That was not our intention.
We're just having talk.
Just a conversation.
Yeah, normally on this show we're always doing such comical things. It was kind of refreshing to do more.
Yeah, a little bit serious.
Serious and live stuff, and then of course when Emmett returns, we can include him in that too.
Of course.
So Emmett, get well.
Definitely.
And on that note, this is Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Stories. We're in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and the lovely Louise Bundy on my left. So until our next show, Maranatha. I always freeze on that chord.
Yeah.
Well, make yourself at home. I'll shut everything down, and we'll go have lunch.
Sounds good.